The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was massive. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Thousands of seats filled the circular room, each one occupied by a delegate from a different world. The air smelled of strange chemicals and exotic atmospheres that each species needed to breathe. Translation devices hummed softly, converting thousands of languages into something everyone could understand. Ambassador Hyun-woo stood at the center podium. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served Earth for 30 years in this chamber. His uniform was simple compared to the elaborate robes and shells and energy fields worn by the other delegates. Humans always preferred practical clothing over decoration. The vote had just finished. The massive display above showed the results in colors that every species could see. Earth's voting rights removed. Earth's council membership suspended. Earth status, observer only. The vote was unanimous among the elder species. 43 ancient civilizations had voted yes. Only 12 younger species had voted no. It did not matter. The elder species controlled the council. Hyun-woo looked at the results for a long moment. He did not seem surprised. He had seen this coming for months. The whispers in the corridors. The closed meetings he was not invited to. The way other ambassadors avoided his eyes. "Ambassador Hyun-woo," the council speaker said. Her voice was translated into a soft chime. She was a Vrelian, a species that looked like floating crystals. "Do you wish to address the council before the vote is finalized?" Hyun-woo nodded slowly. He touched the podium and his voice was amplified across the enormous chamber. 347 years ago, he began, humanity received a message from the stars. We learned we were not alone. We learned that thousands of species existed across the galaxy. We were invited to join the Galactic Council. We were excited. We were honored. We were hopeful. His voice was calm, not angry, not sad, just calm. We sent our best people, our diplomats, our engineers, our soldiers, our doctors, our teachers. We wanted to help. We wanted to learn. We wanted to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Many delegates shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked bored. The elder species representatives looked proud, as if they had made the right decision. "In 347 years, we have served this council," Hyun-woo continued. "Human peacekeepers have stopped 63 wars. Human engineers have rebuilt infrastructure on 412 worlds. Human doctors have cured 17 plagues. Human mediators have negotiated 892 treaties. Human aid workers have saved billions of lives during famines, natural disasters, and refugee crises." He paused. The chamber was silent. "We have lost 2,300,000 human lives in service to this council. That is more than any other species has lost. We did not complain. We considered it an honor to serve." A delegate from the Korthan Empire, a species that looked like armored bears, stood up. "Ambassador, your species is too violent. Too aggressive. You solve every problem with force. This is not compatible with our values of peace and harmony." Hyun-woo looked at the Korthan delegate. "Last year, when the Korthan mining colonies were attacked by raiders, who did you call? Human peacekeepers. We lost 470 soldiers protecting your people. You sent a thank you message. One message. 470 lives for one thank you message." The Korthan delegate sat down quickly. Another delegate stood. This one was from the Silvari Communion, beings made of living plants. "Your culture is too different from ours. You do not understand the subtleties of galactic civilization. You are too young." "Too primitive, is that so?" Hyun-woo asked quietly. "When the blight infected your homeworld 5 years ago, killing your forests, who developed the cure?" "A human scientist named Ji-won. She worked for 3 years without sleep, using your research as a foundation. She died of exhaustion 2 days after the cure was distributed. She was 34 years old. You never acknowledged her contribution publicly." The silvery delegate's leaves rustled but offered no response. Hyun-woo reached into his uniform and pulled out a small metal object. It was Earth's council insignia, a symbol of membership that every delegate wore. It was simple, just a blue and green circle representing Earth surrounded by stars. "This council has decided that humanity is not worthy of full membership," Hyun-woo said. "You have decided that we are too violent, too primitive, too different. Very well. We respect your decision." He placed the insignia on the podium with a soft click. Effective immediately, Earth withdraws from all Galactic Council affairs. All human peacekeepers will return home. All human engineers will cease their projects. All human diplomats will close their offices. All human aid workers will evacuate. All human teachers will end their assignments. We will remove ourselves completely from council space. A murmur spread through the chamber. This was unexpected. Most species who lost voting rights complained loudly. They begged. They negotiated. They did not leave. The council speaker's crystals flickered with confusion. Ambassador, surely this is too extreme. Observer status still allows you many privileges. You can still participate in humanitarian efforts. You can still— No, Hyunwoo interrupted. His voice was still calm. You have made your position clear. We are not wanted here. We are not valued here. Therefore, we will not stay here. He turned to leave, then paused. He looked back at the thousands of delegates watching him. Humanity came to the stars with open hands and open hearts, he said. We offered our friendship, our labor, our lives. You have rejected that offer. We will not offer it again. Good luck with everything you have planned. I hope your ancient wisdom and superior cultures will be enough. He walked away from the podium. His footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber. No one stopped him. No one spoke. They all watched as the human ambassador left the council chambers for the last time. Within 1 hour, every human facility in the council's primary station began shutting down. Engineers packed their tools. Soldiers gathered their weapons. Diplomats erased their files. Aid workers closed their clinics. Teachers dismissed their students. Within 6 hours, the first transport ships departed. They were efficient and quick. No drama, no speeches, no protests, just silent, organized departure. Within 24 hours, half the human presence was gone. Within 1 week, every human had left council space. The Galactic Council was alone now, just as they wanted. The elder species congratulated themselves on removing the troublesome humans. They believed the council would be better without human interference. They had no idea what was coming. The machine that was galactic civilization, built on 347 years of human contribution, began to break down. Quietly at first, then faster, then catastrophically, but that would take time to realize. For now, the council celebrated their decision. They believed they had made the galaxy safer and more harmonious. They could not have been more wrong. 3 months had passed since the humans left. The Galactic Council station seemed emptier now, though most delegates did not notice. The corridors were quieter. The medical bay closed 2 of its 4 wings. The engineering department lost half its staff. But life continued. The elder species assured everyone that this was normal, that things would stabilize. They were wrong. The first crisis began in the Drethian sector. The Drethian Empire and the Velkari Consortium shared a border that stretched across 17 star systems. For 200 years they had fought over those systems. Millions had died. The war only ended when human mediator Jiwan spent 5 years negotiating a peace treaty. The treaty was complex. It required constant monitoring, monthly meetings, quick responses to small incidents before they became big problems. Jiwan had managed all of this personally. She had learned both cultures. She understood their honor codes. She knew when to be gentle and when to be firm. When Jiwan left with the other humans, no one was assigned to replace her. The council believed the treaty would maintain itself. Peace, after all, was simply the absence of war. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. It started small. A Drethian mining ship crossed into Velkari space by accident. A simple mistake. A human mediator would have resolved it in an hour with a few messages and an apology. But there was no human mediator now. The Velkari military detained the mining ship. The Drethian Empire demanded its immediate release. The Velkari insisted on a formal hearing. Both sides quoted different parts of the treaty. Both sides believed they were right. The council assigned a Vrelian mediator to handle it. The Vrelian was experienced and wise. She had lived for 3,000 years. Surely she could manage this simple dispute. She failed within 3 days. The Vrelian did not understand Drethian honor culture. When she suggested the Drethian Empire apologize for the border crossing, they took it as a grave insult. When she told the Velkari to release the ship without a hearing, they accused her of bias. The simple incident became a diplomatic crisis. More incidents followed. Ships crossed borders. Stations were accused of spying. Trade agreements were violated. Each incident was small. Each could have been solved easily. But without someone who understood both cultures, each incident grew worse. By the end of the second month, both empires were mobilizing their fleets. Council analysts watched with growing concern. They reviewed Jiwon's files, trying to understand her methods. The files were thorough, but they missed something crucial. Jiwon had not just followed rules. She had built relationships. She had gained trust. She had made both sides believe she cared about them equally. A new mediator could not replicate that. Trust took years to build. The council did not have years. The war began on a Tuesday. It was sudden and brutal. Both empires had been preparing for months, moving ships, building weapons, training soldiers. The first battle destroyed 3 stations and killed 40,000 people. The council emergency session was chaotic. Delegates shouted at each other. Some blamed the Drethians, some blamed the Velkari. A few quietly admitted they should have kept the humans, but pride prevented most from saying it out loud. While diplomats argued, another crisis emerged in the Outer Rim. The trade routes connecting the outer colonies to the inner worlds had always been dangerous. Pirates operated in the empty spaces between star systems. They raided cargo ships, stole supplies, and sometimes attacked small colonies. For decades, human peacekeepers had patrolled these routes. Small teams and fast ships. They did not eliminate piracy completely, but they kept it manageable. Merchant ships could travel safely most of the time. The pirates knew humans would respond quickly and effectively. When the humans left, the pirates noticed immediately. Within weeks, attacks increased. Within a month, they doubled. Within 2 months, some routes became completely unsafe. The council deployed their own security forces. They were well-trained and well-equipped, but they were too slow. By the time they arrived at an attack site, the pirates were gone. The council forces followed protocols. They filed reports. They investigated. They were thorough and professional. They were also ineffective. Human peacekeepers had operated differently. They had known the pirates. They had infiltrated pirate organizations. They had informants. They had responded to attacks in minutes, not hours. They had bent rules when necessary. Council forces did not bend rules. They followed proper procedure, even when proper procedure did not work. Merchant companies began refusing to travel certain routes. Colonies complained about supply shortages. Prices for basic goods increased. The economy began to suffer. Then the engineering problems started. The Outer Rim colonies were humanity's greatest engineering achievement. Dozens of worlds that had been barely habitable were transformed into comfortable homes for billions. The terraforming technology was complex. It required constant maintenance and adjustment. Human engineers had designed systems that were elegant and efficient. They used techniques other species did not fully understand. When something broke, humans fixed it quickly. They knew their own designs inside and out. When the humans left, they took that knowledge with them. The first failure happened on a colony called Praxis 7. It was a beautiful world with blue skies and green forests. 8 million people lived there. The atmospheric processor that maintained the oxygen levels began to malfunction. Warning lights activated. Alarms sounded. The colony's maintenance team tried to fix it. They followed the human-written manuals carefully. But the manuals assumed certain knowledge. They assumed the reader understood basic human engineering principles. The maintenance team did not. They made the problem worse. The council sent their best engineers. 3 teams arrived from different species. They were experts in their own technologies. They studied the atmospheric processor for 2 weeks. They ran diagnostics. They consulted with specialists. They tried various solutions. Nothing worked. The processor continued to fail. Oxygen levels began to drop. The council ordered an evacuation. 8 million people had to leave their homes. Most went to refugee stations. Some went to other colonies. All of them left behind everything they had built. Praxis 7 became a dead world, not because of war, not because of disaster, but because no one could maintain a machine that humans had built. It happened again on another world, then another. In total, 17 colonies faced similar problems. Some were evacuated in time, others were not. Bitna, a counselor from the Korvathi collective, watched all of this with growing alarm. She had voted against removing the humans. She had argued that humanity provided valuable services. She had been ignored. Now she compiled reports. She documented every crisis, every failure, every death that could have been prevented. The data was clear. Without humans, galactic civilization was collapsing. She presented her findings to the council leadership. She showed them charts and statistics. She explained the patterns. She proved that humans had been essential, not just helpful. The elder species representatives listened politely. Then they dismissed her concerns. "These are temporary problems," they said. "We will adapt. We will learn. We do not need the humans," Bitna tried again. She showed them casualty numbers, refugee counts, economic losses. She made it simple and clear. Humans had not just contributed to galactic society. They had been its foundation. The council leadership refused to admit the truth. To admit they had made a mistake would mean losing face. For species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, losing face was unacceptable. So they blamed other factors. They claimed the Drethian-Velkari War was inevitable. They said the piracy increase was just bad luck. They insisted the engineering failures were due to poor maintenance, not human absence. Bitna returned to her office feeling defeated. She looked at the empty desk across from her. A human liaison had worked there for 20 years. They had been friends. They had shared meals and stories. When the humans left, her friend had said goodbye with tears in his eyes. "I hope you will be okay," he had said. "I hope the council realizes its mistake before too much damage is done." Bitna had promised him they would. Now she was not so sure. Outside her window, she could see transport ships arriving. They carried refugees from the war zones. Thousands of people who had lost their homes. Thousands more would come tomorrow. And the day after, and the day after that, the council had handled problems before. They were experienced. They were wise. But this felt different. This felt like the beginning of something terrible. Like a building with a cracked foundation, still standing, but not for long. Bitna returned to her reports. She would continue documenting everything. Maybe someday someone would care. Maybe someday the truth would matter more than pride. But that day was not today. 6 months without humans, the Galactic Council was learning what absence truly meant. Not the peaceful quiet of solitude, but the terrible silence of something vital missing, like a body without a heart, still moving but slowly dying. The outer rim was dying fastest. Colony World Praxis 7 had been the first to fall. Its atmospheric processor failed and 8 million people evacuated. The world that had taken 50 years to terraform returned to its lifeless state in 3 months. The forest died, the oceans evaporated, the sky turned gray, then black. Counselor Bitna watched the satellite images with a heavy heart. She remembered visiting Praxis 7 10 years ago. Children playing in parks, markets full of food and laughter, families building homes and futures, all gone now. But Praxis 7 was not alone anymore. 16 more colonies reported critical failures. Water purification systems broke down. Power generators malfunctioned. Climate control systems stopped working. Each colony had been maintained by human engineers. Each colony's technology had been designed by human minds. The council sent help. Teams of the best engineers from a dozen species arrived at each failing colony. They brought equipment and expertise. They studied the problems carefully. They worked day and night. They failed anyway. One engineer, a Vrelian named Koss, sent a report that explained why. Bitna read it 3 times, each time feeling colder. "The human systems are not like ours," Koss wrote. "We build machines that follow strict protocols. Every part has one function. Every process has clear steps. This makes our system stable but inflexible. Human systems are different. They adapt. They anticipate. They have redundancies within redundancies. One part can perform multiple functions. The systems learn and adjust themselves. It is brilliant. It is also impossible for us to maintain without understanding the underlying philosophy. In simpler words, human engineering was too smart for other species to fix. The machines worked perfectly when humans maintained them. Without humans, they became mysteries. Colony World Hestia 9 was the worst tragedy. It was a small world with only 200,000 people. A water purification system failed. The council team arrived within a week. They tried to repair it. They followed the manuals. They did everything correctly according to the instructions. The system activated. For 2 days it seemed to work. The colony celebrated. People thanked the council engineers. Children drew pictures of the repair team. Then the system failed catastrophically. Something in the repair had caused a chain reaction. The entire water supply became toxic. There was no time to evacuate. No time to fix it. No time to do anything. 43,000 people died before emergency supplies arrived. The rest were evacuated to overcrowded refugee stations. The news spread across the galaxy. The council tried to control the information, but too many people had family on Hestia 9. Too many merchants had been there. Too many travelers had seen it. People began to understand what had happened. The humans had not just been workers. They had been the people who made impossible things possible. While colonies died, the war between the Drethian Empire and the Velkari Consortium grew worse. What had started as border skirmishes became sector-wide warfare. Millions of soldiers fought across 17 star systems. Civilian casualties climbed into the billions. Refugees fled in massive waves. They came in ships, in escape pods, in anything that could fly. They arrived at council stations begging for help. For food, for shelter, for safety. The council's refugee relief system tried to handle the crisis, but the system had been designed by humans. It had been managed by humans. Human aid workers had run the refugee camps. They had organized food distribution. They had provided medical care. They had done it efficiently and compassionately. The council staff were compassionate too. They cared deeply, but they did not have human organizational skills. They did not have human experience with large-scale disasters. They tried their best. Their best was not enough. Refugee camps became overcrowded. Food supplies ran out. Medical facilities overflowed. Disease spread quickly in the cramped conditions. Thousands died from illnesses that were easily preventable. A plague called the Red Fever broke out in the largest refugee camp. It was a known disease with a known cure. The cure required specific medical equipment that human doctors had always brought to refugee camps. The council had the equipment. They had the medicine. But they did not have the trained people to use it properly. By the time they trained new staff, 20,000 refugees had died. Bitna visited the refugee camp after the plague was controlled. She walked through the rows of temporary shelters. She saw families who had lost everything. Children without parents, elderly without homes, all of them with the same empty look in their eyes. A young Drethian child approached her. The child could not have been more than 6 years old. "Are the humans coming back?" the child asked. "My mother said the humans always helped when things were bad." "Are they coming back?" Bitna did not know how to answer. She knelt down to the child's level. "I do not know," she said honestly. "I hope so. I hope so too," the child said. "I am hungry." Bitna found a food distribution center and made sure the child received a meal. But there were millions like that child. Millions hungry. Millions suffering. Millions who needed help that was not coming. She returned to the council chambers with new determination. She requested an emergency session. She demanded the council leadership listen to her data. She prepared the most comprehensive presentation she could create. The chamber was half empty when she began. Many delegates were dealing with crises in their own territories, but enough were present to matter. 6 months ago, we voted to remove humanity from this council, she began. We believed we would be fine without them. We believed their contributions were minor. We believed we could handle everything ourselves. She displayed images on the screens. Praxis 7 dead and gray. Hestia 9 evacuated and silent. Refugee camps overflowing. War spreading across sectors. "This is the result of our decision," she said. 17 colonies dead or dying. 8 billion refugees. 15 million dead from the Drethian-Velkari War. 20,000 dead from the Red Fever plague. And it is getting worse every day. A Korthan delegate interrupted. "These problems are not related to the humans leaving. These are separate issues that coincidentally happened at the same time." Bitna looked at him directly. "Coincidentally? All of these crises started within months of human departure. All of them in areas where humans were most active." She pulled up more data. Charts showing human involvement in every sector now failing. Human peacekeepers patrolled the Drethian-Velkari border. Human engineers maintained the outer rim colonies. Human aid workers managed refugee relief. Human doctors prevented plague outbreaks. Everywhere they worked, systems functioned. Everywhere they left, systems failed. The chamber was quiet now. Some delegates looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. I have calculated the economic cost, Bitna continued. In 6 months, the galactic economy has lost 40% of its value. Trade routes are unsafe, colonies are abandoned. Entire sectors are in chaos. If this continues for another 6 months, we will face complete collapse. An elder Silvari delegate stood. She was ancient, one of the oldest beings in the council. Her voice carried weight. Counselor Bitna, she said, you exaggerate. Yes, we face challenges. Yes, we have losses. But we are the elder species. We have survived for millions of years. We will adapt. We will overcome. We do not need the humans. With respect, Bitna replied, you are wrong. We do need them. The evidence is overwhelming. The evidence, the Silvari said coldly, shows temporary difficulties. Nothing more. Other elder delegates nodded agreement. They would not admit the truth. They could not admit that young humanity had become essential to galactic civilization. It challenged their entire understanding of themselves. The council speaker called for a vote on Bitna's proposal to invite humanity back. The vote failed. 37 opposed, only 15 in favor. After the session, several younger species delegates approached Bitna privately. We believe you, one said. But the elder species control the council. They will never admit they were wrong. Then what do? Bitna asked. We wait, the delegate said sadly. We wait until things get so bad that they have no choice. Bitna wanted to argue. But she knew the delegate was right. Pride was a powerful force. It would take a catastrophe to overcome it. She just hoped civilization would survive long enough to see that catastrophe. That night, Bitna sat in her office and composed a message. She addressed it to Earth, to the human government. She explained everything that had happened. She apologized for the council's decision. She begged for help. She never sent the message. She knew it would be rejected. The humans had been clear. They would not return unless invited properly. And the council would never issue that invitation. Not yet, anyway. Outside her window, another transport ship arrived. More refugees. More people who had lost everything. More suffering that could have been prevented. Bitna returned to her reports. All she could do was document the truth. Maybe someday it would matter. 1 year without humans. The Galactic Council no longer resembled the proud institution it had once been. The grand chambers where thousands of delegates had debated the future of civilization now hosted desperate meetings about survival. The gleaming station that had symbolized galactic unity was now overcrowded with refugees and understaffed in every department. But the elder species still refused to see the connection. Bitna had compiled everything into one comprehensive report. She called it The Human Factor, a complete analysis of galactic decline. It was 2,000 pages of data, charts, testimonies, and undeniable evidence. She submitted it to every council member. She requested it be discussed in the next High Council meeting. The High Council met once per month. It consisted of representatives from the 15 elder species, the civilizations that had founded the council millions of years ago. They made the final decisions on all major issues. They held the real power. Bitna was not a High Council member. Her species, the Korvathi, were considered young. They had only been spacefaring for 50,000 years. But she was invited to present her findings. The High Council chamber was smaller than the main council hall, but far more elaborate. The walls were made of crystals that showed the history of galactic civilization. Images of ancient wars, peace treaties, and great achievements flowed across the surfaces. Bitna stood before the 15 most powerful beings in the galaxy. Some were biological, some were energy beings, some were artificial intelligences. All were ancient. All were proud. Honored elders, she began. I present evidence that our current crisis is directly caused by humanity's departure. She displayed her first chart. It showed economic decline mapped against human withdrawal. The correlation was perfect. When humans left, they took with them critical skills and knowledge. Engineering, medicine, diplomacy, logistics, areas where no other species can match their abilities. Avrelian elder interrupted. We have engineers. We have doctors. We managed before humans arrived. We will manage now. With respect, Bitna said carefully. We managed differently before humans arrived. We had fewer colonies, simpler systems, less interconnection. Humans helped us expand. They built infrastructure we now depend on but cannot maintain. She showed images of the dead colonies, Praxis 7, Hestia 9, 15 others, each one a world that humans had terraformed and maintained. These colonies were home to 11 billion people, all evacuated or dead, not because of war, not because of natural disaster. Because we cannot maintain human-designed systems, a Korthan elder growled. Then we will build our own systems. Better systems? That will take decades, Bitna replied. We do not have decades. Colony World Talos 4 will fail in 3 months. Colony World Venara will fail in 5 months. 7 more colonies will fail within the year. Where will 30 billion people go? Silence answered her. Everyone knew the refugee system was already overwhelmed. There was no capacity for 30 billion more, Bitna continued. The Drethian-Velkari War has killed 16 million people. It was prevented for 2 centuries by human mediators. We assigned our own mediators. They failed. Why? Because humans understood something we do not. They understood how to build trust across cultural differences. A silvery elder spoke. Her voice was like wind through leaves. You give humans too much credit. They were useful, yes, but not essential. We will find solutions. We have been looking for solutions for a year, Bitna said. How many more must die while we look? She pulled up casualty numbers. Deaths from the war. Deaths from plague. Deaths from engineering failures. Deaths from starvation in refugee camps. The total was staggering. 37 million dead in 1 year, she said quietly. This is more than died in the last 1,000 years combined. And the death rate is increasing. The chamber was quiet. Some elders looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. None looked convinced. The High Council speaker, an ancient being of pure energy, finally spoke. Counselor Bitna, your data is concerning, but you assume causation from correlation. Many factors contribute to our current troubles. The Drethian-Velkari conflict has deep historical roots. The colony failures may be due to poor maintenance before humans left. The economic decline is a natural correction after a period of unsustainable growth. That is not true, Bitna said firmly. Too firmly. She saw several elders stiffen at her tone. But she was beyond caring about protocol. I have examined every factor. I have consulted with hundreds of experts. I have spent a year researching this. The evidence is clear. Without humans, we are collapsing. Enough! The Korthan elder stood, his massive frame towering over the chamber. You insult this council with your obsession. The humans were good servants. That is all. They did what they were told. They were not special. They were not essential, and we will not beg them to return. Several other elders voiced agreement. Bitna saw her opportunity slipping away. If we do not ask them back, she said desperately, what is your plan? How will you save the dying colonies? How will you stop the war? How will you feed the refugees? We will manage, the speaker said coldly, as we have managed for millions of years. You are dismissed, counselor. Bitna knew better than to argue further. She bowed and left the chamber. Her report would be filed and forgotten. Nothing would change. Outside, she found several younger species delegates waiting for her. They had watched the presentation through a live feed. They will never admit the truth, one said. I know, Bitna replied. What will you do now? She thought about that. What could she do? She had no power to change council policy. She had tried using data and logic. That had failed. Pride was stronger than reason. I will keep documenting everything, she said. When this civilization falls, at least there will be a record of why. The delegates looked shocked. You think we will fall? Yes, Bitna said. Not immediately. But within 5 years, I believe the Galactic Council will collapse completely. She returned to her office and updated her reports. Then she did something she had been considering for weeks. She secretly contacted several other counselors who had voted against removing the humans. Together, they formed a small group. They called it the Truth Commission. Their mission was simple: document everything. Record every failure. Interview every victim. Build an undeniable historical record. Maybe the current leadership would not listen, but maybe future leaders would learn from this disaster. Meanwhile, the galaxy continued to burn. The Drethian-Velkari War spread to neighboring sectors. Other species were forced to choose sides. Ancient alliances broke apart. New enemies were made. The war that human mediators had prevented for 2 centuries was becoming the largest conflict in modern galactic history. Economic collapse accelerated. Without safe trade routes, commerce between sectors declined. Prices for basic goods increased dramatically. Wealthy worlds hoarded resources. Poor worlds starved. The fragile economic system that humans had helped maintain was falling apart. More colonies failed. Not just human-designed colonies now. The crisis was spreading. Engineers who should have been maintaining systems were dealing with emergencies. Resources that should have gone to maintenance went to refugees. Everything was breaking down at once. The council held emergency session after emergency session. They debated. They argued. They passed resolutions and formed committees. None of it helped. They were trying to solve problems they did not understand with tools that did not work. On Earth, humans watched it all with mixed feelings. Director HFY, who now led Earth's Department of Galactic Affairs, received daily reports. She read them carefully, occasionally sharing key information with the human government. "Should we offer to help?" one of her advisors asked. "The suffering is immense." "We were asked to leave," HFY said. "We left. If they want us back, they know where to find us." But people are dying. Billions of innocents who had no say in the council's decision. HFY looked out her window at the blue Earth sky. "I know, I feel for them. But we cannot save a civilization that does not want to be saved. If we return now, nothing will change. They will use us until the crisis passes, then discard us again. They must understand our value before we return. They must ask properly. How many more must die before they ask?" HFY did not answer. She did not have an answer. She just knew that returning too soon would solve nothing. Humanity had learned a hard lesson. You cannot help those who do not respect you. The galaxy was learning an even harder lesson. Pride has a price. And that price was being paid in blood, in tears, in the slow collapse of everything they had built. But the lesson was not complete yet. The full cost of removing humanity was still revealing itself. The worst was yet to come, and when it came, it would come suddenly. Like a building with a cracked foundation, the Galactic Council stood steady until the moment it did not. That moment was approaching fast. Bitna sensed it. She saw the patterns in her data. Everything was accelerating towards some critical point. Some moment when the whole system would fail at once. She tried to warn the High Council again. They refused to meet with her. She was becoming known as a troublemaker, someone obsessed with the humans. Her influence was diminishing. So she waited and documented. She knew she was witnessing history. The fall of a great civilization. Not because of war or plague or natural disaster, but because of pride. Because powerful beings could not admit they end 2 years without humans. The Galactic Council was dying. Not the slow decline that Bitna had predicted, but a rapid collapse that surprised even her. The building with the cracked foundation had finally fallen. It began with the Sindari Coalition. They were a group of 12 species who had been council members for 500,000 years. Their territory bordered the Drethian-Velkari war zone. For 2 years, they had absorbed millions of refugees. They had sent peacekeepers to try to stop the war. They had provided humanitarian aid. They had sacrificed enormously. Then their economy broke. The cost of war and refugees was too high. Their government could not pay for basic services anymore. Food distribution failed. Power grids shut down. Their society collapsed in a matter of weeks. The 12 species of the Sindari Coalition withdrew from the council. They announced they would focus on their own survival. They closed their borders. They stopped accepting refugees. They stopped sending aid. That was just the beginning. Within a month, 6 more alliances withdrew from the council. They all gave similar reasons. The council was not solving problems. It was not protecting them. It was not worth the cost of membership. They would be better off alone. The Galactic Council had started with 347 member species. After 2 years, only 208 remained. And more were leaving every week. The exodus created new crises. Trade agreements broke down. Defense pacts dissolved. The infrastructure that connected galactic civilization began to fragment. Each species or alliance looked after only themselves now. The final blow came from an unexpected place. Bitna had spent 2 years documenting everything. She had built a massive archive of evidence showing how human departure had caused the collapse. She had kept it private, sharing only with her small truth commission. Then someone leaked it. No one knew who. Someone with access to the classified files sent them to every major news network in the galaxy. Within hours, billions of people were reading the Human Factor Report. They saw the charts, the death counts, the failed colonies, the economic collapse. And they saw one undeniable conclusion. This disaster could have been prevented. The report revealed something else. Something that made everything worse. It showed that the decision to remove humanity had not been about their violence or cultural differences. It had been about power. Bitna had found communications between 3 elder species. They had planned the vote months in advance. They had convinced other elder species to support it. Their reason was simple. Humans were becoming too influential. Young species were beginning to look to humanity for leadership instead of the elder species. This could not be allowed. So the elder species had removed humans before they became a threat to the old power structure. The revelation caused outrage. Young species felt betrayed. They had believed the vote was about legitimate concerns. Now they knew it was about jealousy and control. Even some elder species were shocked. They had voted yes without knowing the real motivation behind it. The High Council held an emergency session. The chamber was chaotic. Delegates shouted at each other. Accusations flew. The elder species representatives tried to defend themselves, but their words rang hollow. The council speaker tried to restore order. "We must focus on solutions," she said. "The past cannot be changed. We must work together to—" "No." The Korthan delegate stood. He was not an elder, but a younger representative of his species. "We are done working with this council. The Korthan Empire withdraws its membership immediately." Other delegates stood. One by one, they announced their withdrawal. By the end of the session, 43 more species had left the council. The Galactic Council had become the Fractured Council. And it was still fracturing. Bitna watched it all from her office. She felt no satisfaction. She had wanted to prevent this, not cause it. But maybe it was necessary. Maybe civilization needed to break completely before it could be rebuilt properly. The High Council met in private. For the first time in 2 years, they seriously discussed inviting humanity back. They drafted a message. They debated every word. The message was careful and diplomatic. It acknowledged challenges and suggested mutual benefit. From renewed cooperation. It never mentioned the word mistake. It never said sorry. It never admitted they had been wrong. The message was scheduled to be sent to Earth the next day, that night. Bitna received an encrypted communication. It was from an anonymous source. The message contained more leaked documents. These showed that the same 3 elder species who had planned humanity's removal were now planning something else. They intended to invite humans back, yes, but only temporarily, only until the crisis was resolved. Then they would find a reason to remove them again. They would never allow humans to have real power in the council. Bitna stared at the documents for a long time. She thought about all the people who had died, all the suffering, all of it caused by pride and fear. And now the elder species wanted to repeat the same pattern. She made a decision. She leaked the new documents. She sent them to every news network, every government, every major organization in the galaxy. She made sure everyone knew that the invitation to humanity was not sincere. It was manipulation. The reaction was immediate and explosive. The remaining council members were furious. How could they negotiate with humans if everyone knew it was temporary? How could they rebuild trust? The High Council canceled the message to Earth. They could not send it now, not with everyone knowing their true intentions. They called for Bitna to be arrested for leaking classified information. But Bitna had already left the council station. She had returned to her home world. The Korvathi government refused to extradite her. They said she was a hero for revealing the truth. The Galactic Council was finished. Within another month, the total membership dropped to 87 species, then 53, then 31. The grand experiment in galactic unity had failed. Species formed new regional alliances. Some worked well. Some immediately began fighting with their neighbors. The galaxy had not been this divided in millions of years. On Earth, Ambassador Hyunwoo was now very old. He had retired from active service but still advised the government on galactic affairs. When he heard about the council's collapse, he felt sad but not surprised. A young diplomat came to interview him. She wanted to know if humanity would help rebuild. "That depends," Hyunwoo said. "What would we be rebuilding? The same system that rejected us? The same power structure that feared us? Maybe something new," the diplomat said. "Maybe something better," Hyunwoo smiled. "Maybe, but that would require the elder species to accept that the old ways failed. It would require them to share power. to truly treat younger species as equals. Are they ready for that? I don't know, the diplomat admitted. Neither do I, Hyunwoo said. And until they are ready, any help we provide would just enable the same problems. A week later, Bitna managed to send a private message to Earth. She found someone who knew how to reach the human government through unofficial channels. The message was simple. She described everything that had happened. She apologized on behalf of those council members who had opposed humanity's removal. She explained that the council's invitation had been insincere, and she asked a question: will humanity ever forgive us? Will you ever consider helping to rebuild? The message went through several channels before reaching Director Haewon. She read it 3 times. Then she called a meeting with Earth's leadership. They debated for hours. Some argued humanity should help. The suffering was real. People needed assistance. Others argued the galaxy needed to learn its lesson completely. If humanity rescued them now, nothing would change. Finally, they reached a consensus. Haewon drafted a response. She sent it directly to Bitna. We acknowledge your message. We appreciate your honesty and your efforts to reveal the truth. We sympathize with all those suffering from the Council's collapse. However, humanity will not intervene in the current crisis. The Galactic Council made a choice 2 years ago. They chose to reject our partnership. They chose pride over cooperation. They chose to believe they did not need us. Now they are learning the consequences of that choice. This is a lesson that must be learned fully. Perhaps in another generation, when the old powers have fallen and new leaders have risen, we can discuss a true partnership, one based on mutual respect and equality, not one based on temporary necessity. We wish you and all the people of the galaxy peace and wisdom. May you find better answers than the ones that led to this moment. With respect, the people of Earth. Bitna read the message in her small apartment on her homeworld. She cried when she finished it. Not because it was cruel, because it was true. Humanity was not rejecting the galaxy forever. They were just refusing to enable the same broken system. They were waiting for something better to emerge, something worth being part of. Bitna understood. She just hoped her civilization would survive long enough to build that better system. Years passed. The galaxy remained divided. Some regions prospered. Others struggled. Former council space became a patchwork of alliances and independent systems. It was chaotic. It was messy. But in that chaos, something new began to grow. Young species, freed from elder species dominance, began experimenting with new forms of government. New needed help from those